Hi, good evening. I'd like to welcome you to Poem Praise 2, and peace and blessings be upon you and your family this evening. Now, I am right back at you. We're about to get ready to go into weathering the storm, disaster, preparedness, how to survive the fall of America. Now, I know we usually have a 10-minute read, but since Word to the Wise was not that long, we're going to go ahead and get into chapter number 1, Why the Need for Disaster Preparedness. So without further ado, this is take 1 of chapter 1, and it reads as such: Disaster. Now, calamitous, CALAMITOUS event, especially one occurring suddenly and causing great loss of life, damage, or hardship, as a flood, airplane crash, or business failure. Preparedness. Now, the state of being prepared. Readiness. Prepare. Verb. To put in proper condition or readiness. As you can gather from the definitions above, the usage of the term disaster, preparedness, covers much more than a winter storm. Though a disaster can in fact come in the form of something natural, such as tornadoes, floods, solar flares, drought, wildfires, volcanoes, temperature extremes, hot and cold, tsunamis, and earthquakes. Disasters can also be those of man-made origin, including nuclear, chemical explosions or leaks, airborne illnesses, biological, laboratory agents, as well as structural collapses. For an example, the Twin Towers in New York. Not to mention social unrest, like what was witnessed in Ferguson, Missouri. Or what about a pandemic, such as an Ebola quarantine? Imagine martial law being implemented. Then what are we to do? There is another type of disaster that many people do not consider until it happens, that is. And that is a personal disaster. The type of disaster that comes in the form of unemployment or diminishment of income, which may lead, to loss of one's peace of mind. This is considered a disaster because you have no income to purchase food or support yourself or family. Here is something to think on. How well would you survive with chaos and violence in the streets and the inability to leave your home for even a loaf of bread because of the chaos? Again, these are types of disasters that will continue to visit America. In the summer of 2003, there was a major software bug that spanned from Canada through Vermont, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Ohio, and Michigan. The interesting thing was, initially, nobody knew what was going on, myself included. I mean, that emergency broadcast system, that television systems are required to occasionally test, didn't work either. Nor did the radio stations. There was actually only one television station that was still broadcasting: the local Telemundo station. So if you didn't speak Spanish, you were out of luck. Anyway, because all of the regular media was down and out, I called a sister friend of mine in Los Angeles and told her that something was happening in my neck of the woods. And could she go online and find out if there were any national news reports concerning the East Coast? She actually thought I was joking and laughed for a few seconds until she saw that there was a major power grid failure occurring that night. Other than my house and the neighbor a few houses down, the neighborhood was pitch black. I later found out that my neighbor had a small emergency generator in the event of blackouts. My house was lit up like a Christmas tree. Lights inside the house and a few extra lights that I had placed along my walkway. Okay, it may seem like a little overkill with the walkway lights, but I was expecting friends to come over, asking to borrow a few supplies. FYI. So anyone that asks to borrow supplies during an outage, there really is no way to borrow a candle unless you plan on returning the used wax. Smile. The power was out for several hours, and my supplies allowed me to be quite comfortable. I was able to survive with very little discomfort. You see, even though I am originally from the Bronx, I was reared in the beautiful suburban township of Teaneck, New Jersey, from a very young age. The side of town that I grew up in had an older model transformer, which led to many power outages that could be caused by even a small amount of rainfall, mostly short outages of just a few hours. But looking back now, it is clear to me that this was part of my disaster preparedness training. My parents knew that the power in the neighborhood was subject to go off, so they prepared for it. There were always flashlights in the kitchen windowsill, candles above the bread basket, and a portable battery operated TV and radio in the basement. Not to mention a pantry stocked with various canned foods. It was not until later in life that my parents' actions were not the norm, and they probably weren't even familiar with the term disaster preparedness. Hurricane Sandy. The storm left Teaneck and its surrounding communities in a huge mess. Had it not been for pre-planning, it could have been a personal mess for me as well. I, along with a few like-minded others in the community, had often gathered to discuss preparedness and what-if situations. This planning proved to alleviate a great deal of stress that could have come after the storm. We all remained in constant contact with each other during the storm up until the point that one by one we lost electricity. Out of our group of about 15, at the end of the storm, only one family was left with power. Each day we all gathered at that person's home, charged our cell phones and other electronics, engaged in spirited conversations, and broke bread together. Having no electricity, my 90-something-year-old great aunts, whom had refused all of my attempts to provide her with assistance, was now delighted that I was showing up at her home with supplies in hand. And the cousin whom I stayed with during my 5 days of power outage reaped the benefits of my love of cooking as I whooped up meals for her and her friends that had all conveyed over to her home because she had been blessed to maintain electricity during and after the storm. The storm left amazing damage to the Northeast region. However, it strengthened in many the need to prepare for the next storm. Now, this does complete take 1 of chapter 1, so I certainly want you to stay tuned for take 2 of chapter 1, Why the Need for Disaster Preparedness. So I want for you to be well, take care, be blessed, be safe, and it be at thy will. I'll talk with you soon here on Poem Praise 2. So until next time, later y'all.